Hi, welcome to the coaching show. I'm Laurie Lawson, and my guest tonight is the lovely Julia Wade. Hey, Julia.
Hi, Laurie.
I'm going to tell you that I've been following Julia for a long time because she's one of my favorite recording artists. And my thought was to have her on the show and find out a little bit about behind the scenes. And she also has this exciting new album coming out that I happen to love. And we're going to find out how all that came about. So, Julia, thank you for being on I called it the coaching show, and I didn't know the name of it. It's a coaching game, but it's all right. You knew what I meant.
Yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about your career, and because we all know you're a singer. I know you're a singer extraordinaire, and soon they're going to also. So, were you born singing? What's the story here?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your show,
and my pleasure.
It's been really wonderful to have you listening to our music all these years. So thank you.
Definitely my pleasure.
I think when I think back, I was a tiny little kid. I was always singing. I was always making up songs and climbing trees and singing to the stars and the moon and flowers and all of that. So I didn't realize that for many years until I was grown up that I realized I had just always been singing. So I guess it was something that I was supposed to do. And I started out really as an opera singer, and I was trained classically. And I think probably those classical roots are always in me and always with me. And it was a wonderful training ground to train my instrument.
Opera singer. Were you on that?
I know that's like what?
Yeah, it's like were you on stage? And
I was.
That must have been such. I just don't know how those people do it. I mean, and maybe for you it's easy to sustain a high voice. But
well, you train and you train and you train to do that. And I think the thing I'm most grateful for was that in the training I got to work with some really wonderful people. And my first teacher. The thing that I can say about her when I was in college was that she kept my voice young and healthy, didn't push me too fast, and that's problematic for young opera singers who are learning all the skills and putting them all together, but their voice is still developing and coming along, and you don't want to push it too hard. But anyway, so I did sing opera for 10 years. I sang around the country. I came to New York. I did some musical theater back and forth. I was always the kind of performer that would jump into both worlds.
Oh,
and
okay.
so finally, one day, I sang at the Rome Opera, and I sang at the Palermo Opera, which is, to sing in Italy, the heart of opera was amazing. However, I was doing a Kurt Weill musical. Or opera, depending upon who you talk to.
Yeah.
So I was already kind of in that middle ground of blending styles, if you will. Mm-hmm. And one day I realized that what I really was what we call a classical crossover singer. It's a wide open genre, but to me, Josh Groban defines it. So if people say, well, what kind of a singer are you? I say, well, I'm kind of like him. I've even been.
That ain't bad.
Well, yeah, no, and the comparison is simply to say that he brings a classical sensibility into the pop world, and that was basically my path.
That's so interesting because that's what I love about the music and. You mentioned that you were making up songs. Do you write your own songs?
I don't.
Okay,
I mean, that's something that I am in awe of for so many singer-songwriters. And Rebecca Minor, who is on this album, a guest artist, she's a wonderful songwriter.
Really? Yeah.
And I just stand in awe of what she can do. And really, the actress in me, which has been present forever, I'm an interpreter. That's what I love to do. I love to tell stories through music, through stage productions, through performance. And so that's really where my performing life has led me. I'd still love to eventually think about some songwriting, but it's not on the list right now. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I have worked for so long with an amazing songwriter.
Well, we were just getting ready to give him the shout out.
Yes.
So Peter Link,
Yeah,
hey.
hi Peter.
He's also the one of the co-owner, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I lost my voice
That's
for a minute
okay.
there. Of Watchfire Music. And what I was going to say was that you said you sort of put together opera and pop and...
Not in the traditional sense,
Right.
but yes, but it's bringing, it's been a merging of styles for many years into what is just now me singing across several genres, which in this album,
Exactly. and
you'll
I
get
think
that.
that's the beauty of Watchfire Music, because I guess if I don't know how I would, it's indefinable, and I think that makes it really special.
Thank you.
But also there's a bit of inspiration in what's
Yes.
happening here, and you seem to be able to interpret it into all these songs, and Peter seems to be able to orchestrate it into all
Yes.
the songs. And I think that's what makes your music just so special. And it's so I'm gonna ask you, because we've all seen, let's see, Pink Cadillac. We've all seen the movies about the music industry and how rough and tough and cutthroat and killer it is. How do you manage, or how do you guys manage to keep the inspiration within the framework of a world that really you can't be a little innocent, naive person and go in and go, I'm going to sing a song. That doesn't work that way,
It
right?
doesn't work that way at all.
Even I know that. So,
Yeah.
So how do you manage to do that?
Well, Watchfire Music started about 13 years ago, and it was really meant to be a music company that sells recorded music via the internet and, however else. Brick and mortar stores don't really exist.
What was that old store that used to be, I forgot.
Colony?
Yeah,
Colony
music and records. And
Oh my gosh,
could
how I
find
miss it.
anything you wanted from any age. Yeah,
absolutely. Well,
it's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Tower Records is gone. They've been gone forever. Barnes and Nobles is hanging in there, but they do, I think, most of their work online. So how that all worked is about 13 years ago, the company was started. Peter Link started the company. I was one of the initial artists, along with the wonderful Jenny Burton, and who has a long and wonderful career and history.
She's on here
She's
too.
on this album.
And Peter is also, and Rebecca that you mentioned. Yeah, so
so they're dear friends and dear colleagues and amazing artists, all of them.
Cornucopia of stars.
And so the idea, of course, was to sell recorded music, and literally 6 months after Watchfire Music started, the music industry just crashed and burned and tanked, and every adjective that we've been using ever since.
That aren't good.
That aren't good.
All the aren't good adjectives. Yes.
And here we were with this huge website, had signed many artists to be represented on the site and so forth, to get their music out as well, and the way we did things no longer seemed to exist. So the question was, how do we survive, and how do we get the music out there? So we just learned to become very nimble, which I think most people in this time of technology developing and continuing to develop, you have to stay up. And so I believe we're on our 5th iteration that has yet to be unveiled in the new year of a website, because technology continues to change. But to get back to your question, we always intended to sell, to provide and sell inspirational music. And inspirational is a term that we've tried to define as an umbrella term that has all the genres of music. But what defines it, I think, is for some people it could be positive value music. For others, it can be straight out sacred music. So we think of it sort of on a spectrum of, it could be as simple as what Peter likes to say, is that you could write a song that says, I got up today and I feel good. And that can be inspirational.
Absolutely,
and that's just it's a message song, essentially. And including what's the word? I'm losing my words. Instrumental music. So
yeah,
whether it's word, whether it's sung music or played music, all the way across the spectrum, you go from something as simple as "I Feel Good" to, a deeply sacred song that's sung to God, and everything in between, which includes musical theater, and it includes country music and pop music and all the various genres.
Right.
So we wanted to try to help define the term and to give voice and a platform to artists that are writing music along these lines. And so we have over 300 recording artists and composers who are on the site. And so what do you do when something changes so dramatically? At the time, my career took me into being the soloist of a major international church up in Boston, the First Church of Christ Scientist. And one of the things that I was hired to do is, because I could sing across several genres, was to bring new and contemporary music into the services. And people started writing in and saying, well, where did you get that song? And I was all over the internet looking for things. And then, of course, the foundation of my repertoire came with working with Peter Link, because he's prolific in his songwriting. And
scary.
It
Scary
is scary.
good, yeah.
It's definitely scary. Scary good. And so I went back to the original partners of Watchfire Music, which was Peter and two wonderful, wonderful businessmen. And I said, hey, we need to sell digital sheet music. And they're like, no, we don't want to do that. And I said, yes, you do. I'm your original beta tester, because everything I was finding was on the internet, but it was all over the place. And there was
no foundation, conglomeration that you
so
put
I
it
said,
all together.
Yeah, let's do that here. And they threw some seed money at me and said, go work with a developer and get some music up there. And we started with 30 titles, a bunch of Peters and another composer, and today we have thousands of titles that we offer to church soloists, people who do worship or inspirational type services, and then all kinds of other music that people are just looking for, whether it's concert music or cabaret or whatever. But it definitely has a center in the church repertoire.
It's so interesting, because there's a couple of coaching lessons which speak to my heart there. And one is like change. And we're all, coaches, if people weren't afraid to change, there would be no reason for coaches, and I wouldn't have a job. But it's like, and the way you all embrace change, it's like you could have said, oh, you know what?
We're
6
done.
months in, let's call it a day. I don't want to go through this. But you said, okay, how can we adapt? And you keep doing that.
We keep doing it, yes. You have to, yeah. It's, and I think it has everything to do with the fact that we're artists. So we must create, we must continue to put it out there.
Burning thing, you got to do it, got to do it. And the other lesson is, it's like, okay, if you're seeing a need, fill it. Rather than moan and complain.
Right.
It's like, and you saw the need. It's like, I don't want to be on the computer for hours finding 2 songs.
No,
it's like, where can this go? And it's like, if you don't see it out there, do it yourself. And
that's
so
right.
What a beautiful shining example of both things.
It was amazing, because the other thing that I think I instinctually always wanted to develop myself into a business person, because as an artist you don't really work those muscles, especially when you're a student and you're first starting out. And Watchfire Music became a co-ownership between Peter Link and myself at a certain point. The original other partners wanted to go off and do something else, and it was a lovely parting of the ways. But suddenly we said, well, okay, we have all this music, we're invested, what do we do? So we just continued to find composers and recording artists that kind of walked in the same direction that we do. And then we began to understand that in and of itself was not going to be enough, because it's hard to sell music in this day and age, because music is constantly being cast as a free commodity.
I think younger people coming up just assume, of course, music is free. Whereas,
it's not.
we used to save up our dimes and nickels and try to get our our albums together.
Right.
Yeah, they don't know what we're talking about.
So they don't, and it's an education.
Yeah.
So we began to learn that what we had to do is to pair the music with other products that people needed. So the sheet music was the first thing that was the next step level out from the recorded music. And then we began to provide accompaniment tracks, rehearsal tracks, audio tracks, study tracks to learn the music. Many musicians learn by ear and rather than reading music. So we wanted to be able to serve both types of musicians who are out there, putting music, performing.
Wow.
And so we've hugely expanded the catalog. So if there's one sheet music title, Mindy Jostin is a wonderful artist that we represent, and one of her most famous songs is called In His Eyes. So, there's the sheet music, there's the recording, and some of her other songs I think have it where there are accompaniment tracks available and that sort of thing. Peter Link is a perfect example. If he has 30 songs or 50 songs or 100 songs listed, I would say that 95% of them now have these accompaniment tracks and all these other ways to learn the music and to rehearse the music and even perform it.
So it's a dynamic. It's constantly changing.
Yes.
And it's constantly adapting.
Evolving,
that's such a better word.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well, it's just because out of sheer necessity.
And I don't know, evolving. Yes, I guess it is, because change is not always that welcome, but evolution is. So it's like, of course, this is the natural step.
And it was demanded in order to stay up with the modern musician. And things are coming at us faster and faster, and we have to get ready faster and faster. It would seem. So that kind of work has been foundational to Watchfire Music, but also Watchfire Music itself is kind of an umbrella company for all of Peter's works. He's the most prolific person in my life that I know. I mean, because he writes musicals, he writes songs, he produces albums for folks like myself and Jenny. He works with Rebecca. He also teaches. So we have a part of Watchfire Music called Watchfire Music University, and he teaches students all over the country and even the world, studio production, lyric and songwriting. So it's a place that we've tried to create for all kinds of people. There's the listener that just wants to find inspiring, uplifting music, whether it's instrumental or vocal, amongst many different genres. And then there are people that want to come and learn to do what Peter does, or to learn, performance practices or, singing, etc. And then we also license his musicals, and he's got 4 different musicals in development right now. So it's a busy place, and it's a website. It represents the busy place of the artist's work.
And underneath that all is the passion that drives you is the fact that you all just want to get that music out there?
Absolutely.
That's it.
I mean,
that's the one, huh?
I'm a performer. I think of myself as a storyteller. So as an inspirational singer for the past, I'd say, 10 plus years, with all the albums that I've done with very much that inspirational bent of biblically based songs or spiritual songs or just really somehow uplifting and inspirational. It's a communication. It's wanting to communicate messages through an art form that is deeply communicative. I mean,
so many studies have been done on the effect of music, on so many people and in so many different ways. So keep doing what you're doing. My goodness. Yeah.
Thank you.
So tell us what makes, this is called Julia Wade and Friends, and it's a Christmas album, sort of, but I could see singing this in March. What makes this so special?
Well, we knew that we wanted to do a Christmas album for years. I think it's just something you work towards. That's after you've had a chance to do a lot of different.
Is it like the cherry on the top?
I think it is. I think it's one of them, definitely. It's one of the mountaintops, you know.
Yeah.
And so we've been talking about it, and finally the space and time opened up. So in June, literally June 1st, Peter started writing. And he'd been wanting to do the writing end of it for a long time. And so we started looking for songs that we knew we wanted to reinvent. You know, great. Jingle Bells is now a waltz.
It's a marvelous waltz.
Yeah, it's a sleigh ride. It is an absolute
It makes you want to get a sleigh, definitely.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
And you want to get out under the moon and that cold wind under a blanket. And so Jenny and Peter and I recorded that together as a trio. And it's a waltz. It's in 3/4, so you know, it just kind of makes such beautiful sense. So Peter set out to do what he does so beautifully with a wonderfully known piece of material like Jingle Bells. Then he created a quartet for all four of us, which highlights and features Rebecca Minor in Do You Hear What I Hear?
Amazing.
An amazing piece, and what he did with it. And that really became a story song, and where each person passes the torch to the next one, you know, and there's all these little characters in it, and it's a song that we all connect to because it's using those, it's full of the symbols of Christmas, of the origin of Christmas. And so, and you know, whether people celebrate Christmas or not, I love the idea of the all-embracing nature of spiritual holidays or inspirational. I use those terms back and forth, but spiritual holidays, whether it's you know, Hanukkah or Rosh Hashanah or Christmas or you know, Passover, Easter, there are deep messages and stories and lessons for all of us.
Right.
And so to me, this album grabs a little bit of all of that. It's a celebration of the joy of Christmas. I have so many friends who don't celebrate Christmas, but they do. You know, they have other religious cultures and traditions, but they love Christmas, and they love
what's not to
love.
Really.
So in this album, we have what we call a mixture of Santa and Jesus songs, and what that really means is that we have, and they all have messages. They all speak to something, you know, within the human collective or human nature.
I think that's what you're going to find, even if you're not a Christmas celebrator. That it is there's something in there that's going to touch. It's going to touch and move, and maybe a little bit of inspiration, you know, and or just a little bit of hope or whatever. It's just so beautifully done.
Well,
so beautifully done.
Thank you. And you know, it was totally exciting to get these artists together. One thing that's very special about Rebecca, because this audience probably will just be getting to know her. She is just completing 7 years as the soloist. She took over the job that I had in this really wonderfully, it's the world headquarters of that church. So over those years when I sang for 7 years, commuting up there and back and forth and singing in English and Spanish, 3 services for, you know.
Wow.
A worldwide audience developed out of that experience, and she shares that worldwide audience with the work that she's been doing up there as a soloist. And so it's been, and then there's the incredible audience of Jenny Burton, who's had, you know, an amazing career as a gospel R&B pop artist.
It's the Jenny Burton experience is how I got to know her. And it's an experience. I mean, it's just, there's no other word for it, so it's perfect.
And those two women, for me, form a part of a sisterhood of performers and singers. I think of Jenny as she has sistered me and mentored me. We could not be more different. We are apples and oranges as singers. But we are in that fruit basket together.
Together, you're marvelous.
Yeah.
So
and
so
so
such a joy there.
we've had the most wonderful time in as I've come along. I've learned so much from her. I love her music. I love her voice. And Rebecca is also someone who has a very unique talent and and we've shared an audience and we've shared music. So it's an interesting lineup and coming together. And then Peter, being the glue as the songwriter, the orchestrator, the arranger, and knowing these voices so deeply and so well. And then adding his voice, because he sings on this.
It's so much fun. It's so
really
much fun.
great.
Let me ask, we only have like 3 minutes
Okay.
left. Let me ask you, one of the productions that I saw you in, and that Peter and Jenny and gang is in, is Anyone Listening?
Is Anybody Listening?
Is Anybody Listening? Is that still going on? Can that be?
We have. It started out as you know, an off-Broadway theatrical concert with a live CD. So you can get the CD on watchfiremusic.com. It's called Is Anybody Listening? And then it was a webcast. So it was turned into a webcast from the live performances. And we webcast it around the world for about a year. And it is available as a licensing project to bring that music, which again, that's another part of what we think of as inspirational, and I know we're going, but that was more of about issues and how to solve issues on an individual level, and the music brought that forward. So that's kind of the social justice part of, to me, of inspirational music.
Oh my goodness, absolutely, and that is a universal inspiration.
Absolutely,
it's really the survival and the hope for mankind. So check that out.
Okay.
But you mentioned the website.
Yes.
Besides this lovely album,
Yes.
and the website is at the bottom of the page there. What are they going to find on the website?
Oh my gosh!
I know you only have a minute and a half. Go for it.
You can find
this
Jenny.
album.
You can find this album. You can find Rebecca Miner's music, as well as Jenny Burton, who has been prolific as a nationally recognized artist. Peter Link's music.
Can they listen, download? How does that work on the website? Yes, so they can and buy. They can purchase
absolutely.
Also,
you can search for the artist or search for the album, search for an individual song. You can listen to a 90-second sample. You can download it immediately for purchase, or we still ship CDs.
What?
Wow. And that's changing.
Just for the experience, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean it's amazing. I mean
it really is.
but the downloads are where most of how people mostly get their music.
And then does not Peter? I don't know if you participate. Doesn't Peter do like a blog of some sort of?
Yes.
Yes. It's fantastic. Also.
Absolutely. So. If you get to the album page of this, Julia Wade and Friends, if you click the digital liner notes link, you'll find all of his blogs there, and his blog is called Sparks from the Fire.
I know.
So
all right, so we could stay on for a long time.
I know, we're good talkers.
Julia, I gotta thank you so much for being on the
Thank
show
you.
and bringing. We keep saying inspiration, bringing inspiration. Check it out at watchfiremusic.com. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you so much.